Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of InRange. Today I'm going to try and kill two birds with one stone. What I want to introduce you to is a new training course being provided by Independence Training. They've realized when looking through the training courses they're out in the industry that everything's either really focused on CQB or super precision long range, and there's a gap in the middle, which is that 100 to 300. In fact, they're hearing things like going to a carbine course, and if the targets are placed at 100 yards, people are astonished that, what's with this long range? We normally do stuff at 20 yards. Well, you know, we know that a lot of combat is CQB, and the world kind of revolves around that to a certain degree, but we also know that that's not always the case. And so therefore, pushing all of your skill sets into one bucket, whether it's close range or whether it's long range, which is actually the outlier, although very hard to achieve proficiency with, is kind of pigeonholing yourself. So they're bringing a new course to the environment called Field Carbine, which the emphasis will be 100 to 300 yards on realistically sized targets. So on that note, what I want to do is bring that to you guys today. They're going to have the first official public one of these on August 19th, 2017. And so that's a couple weekends from now. I'm going to try and get this video out quickly in case you're in the Phoenix area. You may want to look into this, and I'll provide a link below. On top of that, I'm doing something else that's different. I won this rifle, and then of course modified it heavily, after the Red October match of last October. So this is a specialist, or sort of modernized, maybe special forces for a term, AK74. And so I'm going to run this course today, or at least portions of it, with this configuration. Zenitco stock, Zenitco rail system, EOTech, the Russians are fans of that. I know a lot of Americans aren't, but the Russians use them a lot. Magnifier, Zenitco front rail system, Zenitco goose leg for a bipod, a Gemtech suppressor, a white light, sling, etc. Oh, and a Zenitech forward a vertical grip as well. I do not have a laser on this right now. That's neither here nor there for this moment. Obviously an aftermarket pistol grip and an ALG match grade trigger. This is 545, and I'm going to try and run this course today with this rifle versus everyone else here, which has some sort of precision type AR carbine with a variable optic on it. So I'm really bucking the trend here, but the Russians are absolutely fielding rifles like this in the field. We've got a number of pictures of them in Syria and other places, and so therefore let's find out what this does. I can tell you right now, it can do a lot, but man, you have a weight penalty. This thing is heavy. For a 545 gun, weighs a freaking ton. So let's see what happens with that. On top of that, I am running a Finnish load-bearing vest, armor carrier with Finnish plates. This is the first video I've done with this. This load-bearing vest is incredible. It's very comfortable. We'll see how it works today while moving through field conditions. Watch the video. We'll get some comments about this rifle and how it works in these conditions, but also give you an idea of what the class could be if you decide you want to take it. So guys, what we just started off with was zero confirmation. You either zero your scope at 50 or 100, and there was some interesting conversation about using a red dot at a lower brightness setting when it's not blooming to actually determine the actual minutes of angle of your dot at 100 yards. Because if you know that, you can actually use a red dot for range finding. So we've all got confirmed zeros now at either at 50 or 100. We're going to move on to field conditions. So that's the kind of stuff you're going to get at this course. Let's see what happens next.
It goes everywhere with me. This is my one rifle for all kinds of stuff. You got to write that down somewhere. So print out a piece of paper, write down where your holds are, and put that on your stock, put it on the side of your receiver, put it on a little card, however you need to do it so that you can have access to that information quickly. All right.
And this is where that 4 MOA dot's perfect. If it's a 12-inch gong at 300, yeah, the dot literally perfectly encircles the target.
Then you know.
Yeah.
Right. So, and if you want to use your 2 or your 3 or your 1 minute, it doesn't really matter what you're using. It's advantageous in some circumstances to have certain types of center dots or whatever. But if you've got reticles, if you've got BDCs, if you have mils or minute holds or whatever, you have to record that information. We have, those are at 100. We've got a 200-yard gong. If you go from the ones down at the bottom, you go up at the 1 o'clock. There's a small 10-inch gong hanging at 200. And if you continue up at 1 o'clock, just below the ridge line, there's a big gong hanging at 300, and that is a 12-inch gong at 300.
Just cinch it down enough to squeeze into it for your longer shots. Doesn't take a lot of time, it will increase your accuracy, just putting it under tension. If you guys run some type of shooting stick in a hunting atmosphere, it's like that. You're going to do with your sling, just take your sling and just wrap it around the front. Then all you do is torque down with your hand, and that'll put front tension on your rifle to lock it into position for you. If you have the time, kick your reverse knee up. Then you can go knee to leg to further stable your position.
Bring this leg farther back. There you go. That way you're almost kind of sitting down as opposed to leaning back. You have to play with that a little bit to get your position right.
All right, so what you just saw was something you'd almost never see in a normal carping class, and that's absolutely what's differentiating this course that they're putting together versus others, and that the purpose of this course is that intermediate 1 to 300 yard range, and they're emphasizing field conditions like bench rest shooting and not necessarily prone. So we started off prone, and we shot at 100, 150, 160, 200, 245, 300, and the reason for that was to give you a chance to get used to your optic, figure out what your dope was, meaning your zero at those ranges. You have a red dot, learning how to range find with your red dot, something unusual, and then where you need to hold with your red dot, high or low or whatever, at intermediate ranges to get those hits. And then what you saw after this was a discussion about using slings, specifically 2-point slings, adjustable 2-point slings for support positions, standing offhand, kneeling, prone, off a tripod, off of any sort of rest you can form. And that is something also very unique to this course, something that is quintessentially frequently forgotten in many courses. And so what you see here is high power type shooting coming into the tactical training environment again. So a lot of that was stuff you see in an NRA high power match because the principles and fundamentals of marksmanship still always apply. However, maybe you're not using a 1907 sling like we did in the oldie days, you're using an adjustable 2-point. This happens to be a Magpul on my AK. I happen to like the Vickers, the Viking Tactics ones quite a bit. Vickers makes a Blue Force gear from Vickers. Larry Vickers makes one as well. They're all fundamentally, functionally the same for these reasons. You never know when you need it, not only for carry, either on your front or on your back, but for marksmanship enhancement as well. And so pretty interesting stuff and unique, as far as I'm concerned, from what I've seen from a lot of other training courses. So just did that with the AK, did just fine. Now the AK itself, got to tell you, with Wolf or Tula or Silver Bear ammo, it's just not as accurate as the ARs that are out here. However, those hits at 150, 200, 245, 300 are not a problem. These are all within the realm of viability with this gun and that ammunition. However, you might hit the full size of the plate versus just the center of the plate. And that's what you start dealing with the AK. And not just the AK, but just the ammunition quality. Maybe if you brought out some match quality 545, you'd see a little bit of a difference. But that's bank and kind of unusual here in the States, so I'm just shooting standard 60 grain fodder. But that said, this gun's capable of making those hits. It's not a problem. It's keeping up with the AR so far. We're moving on to true field conditions in just a moment.
Probably then here, this is probably about as far out as I would go. Start building your guys' positions alongside this rock ledge. All right, plenty of room to sit. If you need bipods or tripods, you can take scopes off of them. Jay's got a set of sticks. Pat's got a set of sticks. So go ahead and start getting set up, and I'm going to shoot the distances for you guys.
Hey guys, so when you get a position in the field that's locked in tight enough, I'm not even holding the gun. The bipod's locked into my tripod. It's literally pretty much on target and I'm doing nothing. This is what you want to do when you're cheating. This is cheating, and cheating is what you want to do to get hits. Pretty rad. So what I want to say here is I'm locked in with my bipod into my tripod legs, one bipod leg in front, one behind. That allows me to brace and lock it in. I have a swivel on this bipod, which I can't show right now, but that's pertinent because that allowed me to bring the gun at a horizontal level. With the magnifier and the EOTech, as you just heard Glenn said, this gun is absolutely having no problem making those 300-yard hits on a 10-inch plate.
Controlling our breathing, and we're shooting during that respiratory pause. The pause can be at the bottom of the exhale or the top of the inhale. It really doesn't matter. But keep in mind, you have a maximum of about 3 seconds of respiratory pause. All right, you guys, so just like we do with every class, let's do a little bit of a debrief. We'll start with kind of our typical debrief, which is what did you guys all kind of take away and what are you going to practice? Where do you see a need for improvement?
Oh, okay. Or I'll try something that I see with you guys, and you guys try it this way, because I didn't quite apply what you guys tried exactly right. So you guys come around and turn your hand just a little bit more. Okay, that's where it is. That's the sweet spot. Little things like that, and that's what I need to consistently practice. And I can do that dry in the backyard.
But frankly, it's exactly what you described it as. I think there's a huge gap in the training industry of people doing this intermediate range stuff. and Fieldcraft. You see everything CQB, it's all 7 yards, 50 yards, 100 yards is the long range, and that's on a full-size IDPA target or something like that. Or it's the other end of the spectrum, like you said, which is this 1,000-yard precision wind doping 6.5 Creedmoor stuff. And this is exactly that middle ground that no one ever, I don't see anyone doing this. There might be others, but I think you are filling a niche with this. And by starting off doing what we're doing up there, I actually learned something today, which frankly this sounds weird, but shooting so long, when you see something new, that's like, whoa, which was tying to the belt. I'd never seen that before. That's friggin' slick as a support position. But then taking it up into the field and actually doing it off of a very nasty slope and actually getting hits. That's putting the pedal to the metal and actually testing it. And that's another thing you don't see in a lot of training environments, in that people give you this, here's this, but then they don't test it.
There's no validation.
And this was validation.
I mean, a million years ago when I started shooting, I did CMP, so it was like traditional high power. And then, you know, gosh, for the last 20 years, it's either been, you know, run and gun, short stuff, because that's just, I mean, it's fun, but, and the precision stuff, and it's really cool to sort of hybridize where I'm seeing stuff from old school, like high power stuff, but integrated into the field.
Right, we just completed the prototype class, and I got to tell you, this is a very important course to take. This is something I've not seen offered in the industry before, or at least not commonly. This idea of shooting this intermediate ranges with these types of carbines from 100 to 300 in field conditions. We're not talking only prone. We start off prone and get your zero at 50 or 100. Then we went prone up, and then we started, you know, experimenting with positions on bags and slings and off of rests, etc. But then we actually put it to the test and walked up the side of a very mean, very slopey hill, and from very uncomfortable positions started getting hits at 100, 150, 200, 260, 300 yards. 300-yard target was an 8-inch circle, or maybe 10 to 8-inch. I don't recall exactly, but no bigger than 10. And quite honestly, dinging it right here with the AK. And so, using whatever you got with you. I happen to have a camera tripod, and we showed that in the video. I used it as a rest for the gun, locking my bipod into it. This is a situation also in which really long bipod legs in the field can have a lot of merit, and these tactical bipods don't always provide you what you need in field conditions. So that's something to consider. But I would say that if you are interested in actually learning how to use your carbine in a way that most matches or courses do not provide an opportunity to do, this is absolutely the course for you. The first one's going to be August 19th, which is just a couple weekends away. However, they are going to continue this course regularly. I will link to Independence Training below in the video, and I would really highly recommend, if you're in the area, that you should pursue it. Do the CQB stuff, do the cool 50 to 100 yard fast stuff, no problem with that. Obviously that's a skill in and of itself. But being able to use these rifles for what they're meant to be used for, out to those distances in the field, really is quintessential and sorely missed in the industry. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this kind of content. Please consider supporting us on Patreon. We are a viewer-supported project entirely. It's your funds that allows us to do this kind of work. If you can't support us on Patreon, totally understand. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Full 30, Facebook. I'm very active on Facebook. But more importantly, share with your friends, because this is the kind of stuff we want to put out there, and this kind of responsible trained gun handling is exactly what InRange is all about. Thanks for watching.